Good morning, students. This is Durgesh Kumar Pandey, your history teacher. Students, in my previous class, I had talked about the two more powerful kings, that was Augustus and Gallienus. They were very powerful. They were very powerful. Their policy was so strong. Their policy was so strong. They established the city, and through the taxes they earned much more money for the welfare of their society and their kingdom. Now students, today I am going to discuss with you all the crisis of 3rd century. The 3rd century crisis. Now I am going to discuss with you all. The 3rd century crisis. The 3rd century crisis. Students, what kinds of crises were there during the 3rd century? First, we will discuss the region. Why does this happen? What kinds of crises were there? Before discussing the 3rd century, we will discuss about the 1st and 2nd century. So students, during 1st and 2nd century, during 1st and 2nd century, during 1st and 2nd century were a period of, during 1st and 2nd century in Roman Empire, this period was counted as, the period of peace, prosperity, and economic expansion. During the 1st and 2nd century in Roman Empire, this period was counted as the period of peace, prosperity, and economic expansion. But the 3rd century was a period of crisis. Students, but the 3rd century was the period of crisis. What was the reason? Why did this happen? What were the scenario behind it? In 225 AD, there is new dynasty emerged in Iran that was known as Sassanians. In 200, and they were more aggressive. And expanding rapidly in the direction of Euphrates. In 225 AD, there is there is a new dynasty. There were a new dynasty emerged in Iran. The name of that dynasty was known as Sassanians. Students. They were known as Sassanians. The Sassanians were more aggressive. Sassanians were more aggressive. Sassanians were more aggressive. They move rapidly. They move rapidly in the direction of Euphrates. Students, you all are aware about the Euphrates because you have studied in the second chapter about the Euphrates river and Tigris river in writing and city life. The chapter 2, which were about the Mesopotamian civilization. Now students, when they move further towards the Euphrates, what will be the happen? Example, the Antioch city, which was the capital city of Rome during that time, were captured by Sassanians. The king of Roman Empire at that time was Shapur first. Example, the Antioch city. Example, Antioch city which was the capital of Roman Empire. Captured by Sassanians. The king of that time was Shapur first. Shapur first was the king of Rome during that time in 225 AD. Students, the capital city of Rome, Antioch, captured by Sassanians, and a result, they killed near about 60,000 soldiers. They killed near about 60,000 soldiers in that battle. students in that battle. Now, students, after that Sasanians, we will talk about the another tribal groups which are more barbarians. That were the Germanic tribes. That were the Germanic tribes. They were the Germanic tribes. The Germanic tribes were much more barbarians. They were also very barbarous. Now, students, we will talk about them. We will talk about them. How barbarous they were. Students, the Germanic tribes, the Germanic tribes, they are also very barbarians. Students began to move against the Rhine and Danube rivers. Began to move against Rhine and Danube rivers. Students, the Germanic tribes began to move against the Rhine and Danube rivers. Students, from 233 to 280 saw repeated invasions. The Romans were forced to abandon much of their territory. From 233 to 280 AD, Roman Empire faced lots of invaders. Much of the Romans were forced to abandon abandoned their territory beyond the Danube. Friends, here you can easily say when the Germanic tribes began to move against the Rhine and Danube river frontiers, against move Rhine and Danube river frontiers, what were the result? In 233 to 280 AD, the Roman Empire faced lots of invaders who invade over the Roman Empire. They forced to abandon the peoples of Roman Empire. They forced to abandon their territory beyond the Danube. What was the result? Result that the Roman Empire limitated in the southern part of Danube. दक्षिण सीमा तक ही सीमित रह गया, दक्षिण सीमा तक ही सीमित रह गया। ये रिजल्ट था, ये रिजल्ट था। ड्यूरिंग 3rd century, if we will talk about during the 3rd century, the invaders who came from the outsides, the invader who invaded over the Roman empires, they have faced last quick succession of kings. Near about 25 kings changed in 47 years. There are near about 25 kings changed in 47 years. Students, this shows a sign of a strain. It is also a sign of strain faced by the empire in the 3rd century. During the 3rd century, Roman empires faced lots of problems. They faced many invaders. They faced many invaders who came from outside, who came from outside. As a result, what was the result? Near about 25 emperors changed in 47 years. In 47 years, students. So it's also a sign of a strain in 3rd century in Roman Empire. It's also a sign of strain, in Roman Empire during 3rd century. Students. So students, this was the specific region, this was the crisis in Roman Empire in the 3rd century. Students, by these topics, I am going to end this session here. We will meet in next video, in next day. Thank you, students. Thank you very much.